and welcome to Disney Day 6. Day 6. I am, of course, Jammer.
And I am Luke.
And today we will be discussing and rating Alice in Wonderland. So I'll kick us off with this one, with a little bit of history. Alice in Wonderland is based on two books by Lewis Carroll, which is Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's mainly written in prose and poetry. It's a very weird, fantastical world, very surreal, and that obviously translates through into the Disney film. In Alice in Wonderland, you come across a lot of surreal characters. So you've got the Cheshire Cat, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the Mad Hatter, the White Rabbit, the Red Queen, I think is the last character you meet maybe. And it's all just about Alice's journey into Wonderland and the assortment of characters that she meets on the way. Each character brings in a new story and a new kind of set of challenges or situations for Alice to go through.
So it's odd. It's just strange. I mean, and that's not even Disney's fault, in fairness. That's like just the original text is that wacky. It's like the whole point of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland is that it's like as crazy as a story can go, and it's like with anything like cooking, climbing, like sport, or like anything. There's always like a guy that goes, "This is the way to do it," and goes to an absolute extreme. And everyone else kind of goes, I kind of agree with you, but I'm going to bring it up to here. That's kind of where, like, Alice in Wonderland is in terms of craziness. It's like, wow, that's what a story looks like when you go full crazy. I'm going to go this crazy. And as a result, it is definitely the strangest of the Disneys yet.
I'm not a huge Alice in Wonderland fan. Like I've always said, which we'll touch upon definitely in the next video, you are either an Alice in Wonderland fan or Peter Pan fan. Like I've got friends who I grew up with that are really, really into Alice in Wonderland, have always been into it, been into the book, been into the Disney thing, been into the Tim Burton remake, just loved it. And I'm camp Peter Pan, which you will find out in the next video. So for me, it's just too odd. It's too surreal. It's too weird. It's just... and just traumatizing. Again, a lot of the early Disney classics are traumatizing, and that is because Walt Disney believed in the fact that you had to have something in there that scared the kids. He was like, it's not a well-balanced film unless there's one scene that's absolutely going to terrify them, which we've mentioned before in previous ones. So like Snow White, just the Queen when she does the whole poison apple and transforms is scary. Pinocchio, you've got the Pleasure Island scene that's scary. Dumbo, you've got the pink elephants. Bambi, I guess the fire is probably the scary part.
And Bambi's mum dying.
And Bambi's mum dying. Cinderella, you've got the cat and just the stepmother and various scary things. And Alice in Wonderland, just for me, a whole lot of it was just like, oh gosh. The bit that sticks out the most, which is 16 minutes into the film, and I think you kind of forget just how early on this story is. It's when she first meets Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and they tell her the story of the walrus and the carpenter. And that is essentially a story about a walrus and a carpenter, which for some reason are friends, who go out in search of oysters. And the walrus goes under the water and finds a family of oysters, like an elderly oyster mother she's got all these babies, and he convinces the babies to come with him up onto shore because he's going to take them on a fun day out. The mother stays behind, and he takes them to a restaurant, and he's like, we're all going to sit down to eat. The carpenter goes off into the back to prepare the meal, and when the baby oysters look at the menu, it says that it's oysters. And the carpenter's out there preparing some bread and everything, and the walrus, because he's greedy, basically murders all the baby oysters by eating them before the carpenter can even get there. He just straight up massacres an oyster family. And it's just because they're animated oysters, you can see the moment on these baby oysters' faces where they realise that they're going to get eaten. And it's just as an adult, it's like, oh gosh, but even as a child, it's like the one part of that movie that has properly stayed with me is just the baby oysters that get eaten. And it doesn't really, that just kind of sets the tone for the whole film at 16 minutes in.
As far as Lewis Carroll go, like in terms of the actual story of Alice in Wonderland, I think Disney did it as best as it possibly could be done. Like you have all the live action versions and all like the adaptions, but I think they've either decided not to try and capture the craziness, or they've kind of not done it well enough. I think as much as the animation is weird, I truly believe it's the best you could possibly tell a Lewis Carroll story. Like, it's crazy, but in being animated and having that Disney kooky style, and like with the oysters, they couldn't have done that scene better because they stuck to what Lewis Carroll wrote, and they kind of made it. It's as good as it could have been done.
Yeah, also you can't give real oysters little faces that are aware they're about to die.
Yeah. So, while I don't think this would save it entirely, I do think that Disney did a good job at creating this craziness. The other frustrating thing with Alice in Wonderland is, so the story, as we said, is kind of, it kind of wanders and it's a bit too crazy, but you gotta love the characters. Let's be honest. It's like watching, the story might not grip you, but you kind of, you're in it to look at, see the Cheshire Cat again, or you're gonna in to see Tweedledee and Tweedledum, or like the Mad Hatter again. You're kind of like visiting a house party you don't want to be at just to see those friends you kind of like. That's what Alice in Wonderland is for me.
Yeah, did you want to talk about the characters more, like the Cheshire Cat, for example?
I love the Cheshire Cat. I think just the style of him, just the invisible, creepy smile. Again, Walt Disney and cats, he has something against them. Then you've got Caterpillar, Absalom.
Absalom, yeah.
That's just with smoking the hookah pipe. Again, these days I wouldn't get past censors. But, it's kind of like symbolic, and I like that. You've got another mad queen, the Queen of Hearts. And like just the whole her royal guard is literally a walking deck of cards. That's
and the King of Hearts. The King of Hearts is in the Disney version as well, isn't he? I like the Queen of Hearts. She may want to chop people's heads off, but
off with their heads.
I like her.
Yeah.
I like her more. Again, it's the same thing with the Snow White Evil Queen. I like her more in the retellings. Like, I love Helena Bonham Carter's Red Queen. I love just her and other kind of other retellings of it. So like the Looking Glass Wars, which is probably my favourite retelling of Alice in Wonderland. The Red Queen in that is crazy. You read a book series called Insanity. I haven't got to the Red Queen in that. I kind of gave up with that. Sorry, Insanity fans. But I'm assuming she's equally evil and probably a little bit better explained than just she likes chopping people's heads off.
It's worth a read. Yeah, and like then you got the Mad Hatter, and I love the whole tea party scene. Like, again, Alice in Wonderland, there's a lot of trudge, like the oyster scene you have to get through, but then you get to these great little moments that are kind of like in there, and they're really iconic. And a little bit like how I felt about Pinocchio, it's like I'm remembering great scenes and like, oh, I love Alice in Wonderland, but do I just like certain scenes?
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think certain scenes are great. So, for example, the croquet scene with the flamingos and the porcupines, I think they may be hedgehogs. That's a fun little scene that everyone remembers. The Unbirthday song with the tea party, great scene. The White Rabbit, great scene when she's eating the food to grow and drinking things to shrink, and she's in the room that she fills with her tears, and there's the tiny door that she's got to get through. I think just individual scenes and individual characters in Alice in Wonderland are great, but when you put it together as a whole, I'm not a fan. Okay, so fun fact about Alice in Wonderland is that in every Disney film, they bring in actors to help out the animators. So actors will act out scenes and the animators will draw that. It's usually just for a couple of scenes of the film, but the whole Alice in Wonderland was done live action and then animated, and Walt Disney was really torn. He really wanted to make it live action with animation, which was later done in Mary Poppins. That's what he wanted for Alice in Wonderland. So that is my fun fact. Yeah, we'll rate them now.
Okay, I'll start. Alice in Wonderland is a tricky one to rate. I love bits of it, and I honestly think when it comes to Lewis Carroll's work, Disney did it the best it could possibly be done. So I want to mark it high for that. At the same time, I do like the characters more than I like the story, but I feel like those points belong with Lewis Carroll and not, well, Disney. But we could say that about any Disney film, so I'm going to play it safe, go right down the middle with a 5.
I'm going to give it the same as I gave Snow White, so I'm going to give it a 3.
There we go.
I think that's our lowest rated so far. Oh no, it's not. It's tying with Pinocchio and Dumbo.
Yeah, we're kind of going in. We're leaving the classic period now. Well, not really, but we're definitely.
I'd say we've got about 3 more films in the classic period to do.
They're interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to say goodbye.
Have a very merry unbirthday, if the day is your unbirthday too. If not, have a magical rest of your day.